They had everything money could buy: respect on the streets, influence across cities, and a network that seemed impossible to break. From the outside, it looked like they had beaten the system. They walked freely, spoke confidently, and operated as if the rules of society no longer applied to them. To many, they appeared untouchable. But what no one saw in the early days were the silent observers, the quiet patterns forming, and the truth that no empire built in shadows can ever escape the light forever.
The illusion of being untouchable is one of the most dangerous beliefs any criminal network can develop. It doesn't happen overnight. It grows slowly, built on early successes, avoided arrests, quick profits, and a sense of control over their surroundings. At first, every move is cautious. Conversations are brief. Trust is limited. Operations stay small. But once success becomes routine, fear begins to fade. Confidence turns into boldness. Boldness turns into arrogance. And arrogance becomes the very weakness that brings everything down. In the early stages of these operations, the individuals involved often convince themselves they are smarter than the system. They believe the police are always one step behind. Each successful delivery, each avoided stop, each clean transaction strengthens that belief. Over time, this creates a dangerous mindset, the idea that consequences only happen to others. When months turn into years without interruption, the illusion hardens into certainty. They begin to feel protected, powerful, and immune. This belief changes behavior completely. Meetings become more open, codes become less complex, locations become predictable. The same routes are used, the same contacts are trusted without question. The very discipline that once kept them hidden slowly disappears. What once required strict caution now becomes routine. And routine is exactly what investigators rely on. Patterns form long before arrests ever happen. The illusion of being untouchable also affects how individuals see themselves within their communities. Respect becomes currency. People begin to recognize their presence. Whispers follow them into shops, cafes, and neighborhoods. Some admire their success without knowing the cost behind it. Others fear their influence. Either way, attention grows, and attention is always dangerous. The more visible someone becomes, the harder it is to hide. Double lives begin to form under this illusion. On one side, there's the public image. Business-minded, family-focused, successful, calm. On the other side lies the hidden operation. Secret meetings, unseen networks, quiet logistics. Maintaining both requires extreme control, but control weakens when confidence replaces caution. Small mistakes start slipping through. A message sent too casually, a phone kept too long, a meeting held too often in the same place. These tiny cracks slowly widen. What many fail to understand is that investigations rarely begin with dramatic arrests. Most start quietly. A minor tip, a routine stop, a single overlooked mistake. From there, threads begin to connect. Data builds, movements align, associations form, and long before those under surveillance ever realize it, the walls are already closing in. The belief in being untouchable also affects loyalty within criminal networks. When everything appears successful, trust becomes easy. New people are brought in, old alliances are taken for granted. Greed expands what was once tightly controlled. But as numbers grow, so do risks. More people means more conversations, more movement, more chance of exposure, and not everyone carries loyalty the same way. Stress also grows beneath the surface. Even when profits rise, so does pressure. The fear of losing it all never truly disappears. It simply hides behind confidence. This internal tension leads to rushed decisions, emotional reactions, poor judgment, And every poor decision leaves evidence, sometimes immediately, sometimes months later, but it always waits. The idea of being untouchable is often reinforced by the outside world without intention. Stories spread, reputation builds, people speak as if certain individuals are beyond reach. That reputation becomes a shield they believe will protect them. But reputation is invisible. It cannot block surveillance. It cannot erase records. It cannot stop the slow patience of law enforcement. In fact, it often places a bigger spotlight on the very people trying to stay hidden. When the turning point finally arrives, it never feels dramatic at first. There is no warning bell, no announcement, just small, quiet changes. A familiar face disappears from routine. A background figure is suddenly absent. A known location becomes unusually quiet. These signs often go ignored by those still trapped in the illusion. They explain them away. They convince themselves everything is fine, until it isn't. The collapse of the untouchable mindset is always sudden, even when it has taken years to form. One moment, life feels powerful and controlled. The next, everything changes. The masks fall away. The separation between public life and hidden operations disappears, and the truth becomes unavoidable. The same system they believed they outsmarted is now waiting with every step documented. In the aftermath, reflection often comes too late. The realization sets in that it wasn't intelligence that kept them free for so long. It was timing. It wasn't invisibility, it was simply delay. The feeling of being untouchable was never reality. It was only a temporary gap between action and consequence. For those watching from the outside, these stories often look like tales of power and influence. But beneath that surface is a different truth. Every moment of unchecked confidence moves closer to collapse. Every step taken without fear sharpens the fall. The illusion of being untouchable is not strength. It is the most dangerous weakness of all. Because in the end, the system does not need to be faster. It only needs to be patient. And patience always outlasts arrogance.
Because in the end, the system does not need to be faster. It only needs to be patient. And patience always outlasts arrogance. This is where the second truth begins to unfold. The part most people never see while everything still looks quiet on the surface. While outward confidence grows inside criminal networks, something else grows quietly alongside it. Intelligence. Not the kind that announces itself, not the kind that moves quickly or loudly, but the kind that listens, records, waits, and connects. Every operation, no matter how careful, creates information. Movements create patterns. Conversations create data. Associations create networks. Even silence creates clues. At first, these pieces appear meaningless on their own. One contact here, one location there, a time, a route, a name spoken too casually, a device used too often. None of it feels important in the moment, but intelligence is not built in moments. It is built in layers. For those being watched, the danger never feels real at first. There are no sirens, no warnings, no visible signs. Life continues as normal. Meetings still happen. Routines stay intact. Profits still move. The illusion of control remains strong. Meanwhile, in the background, details begin aligning. What once appeared random starts to make sense when placed beside something else. A single line of information becomes part of a much larger picture. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing intelligence arrives suddenly. In reality, it arrives slowly and quietly. It gathers from small sources, routine checks, background signals, overlooked details, casual observations, and unexpected tips. Sometimes it comes from people who never intended to become part of anything larger. Sometimes it comes from chance. Often, it comes from consistency. The system does not rush, it simply records. The longer an operation continues, the clearer its structure becomes. Roles begin to stand out. Who moves and who orders?
Who communicates and who avoids communication? Who stays visible and who remains distant? These distinctions take time to see, but once they are seen, they cannot be unseen. The network slowly reveals itself without ever meaning to. Technology plays its role quietly as well. Devices once believed to offer protection begin to leave trails. Digital footprints form whether people notice them or not. Timestamps, location shifts, repeated behaviors. None of it feels dangerous until it is placed beside months or even years of the same activity. What feels invisible in isolation becomes undeniable in accumulation. What makes intelligence powerful is not speed, but confirmation. One piece alone means little. 2 pieces suggest possibility. 10 pieces suggest pattern. And 100 pieces form a narrative that no denial can erase. The system waits for this confirmation. It waits until doubt fades and clarity takes its place. By the time action becomes visible, certainty already exists. Inside the network, very few people sense this build-up happening. Daily life feels unchanged. Success still feels secure. There is no immediate reward for caution anymore, so caution slowly fades. Conversations become relaxed. Jokes replace codes. Familiar names replace aliases. The mind convinces itself that nothing has gone wrong because nothing looks wrong. This is how distance grows between perception and reality. There is also another powerful element at work: internal pressure. As intelligence builds outside, tension builds inside. Expectations rise, demand increases, the pace feels heavier, people grow tired. Fatigue makes people careless. Carelessness shortens patience, and when patience shortens, mistakes become easier to make. The system does not need individuals to collapse dramatically. It only needs them to slip slightly. Sometimes intelligence advances not because of a major failure, but because of something very human: disappointment, frustration, fear, or self-preservation. Not everyone carries ambition and risk the same way. Not everyone is prepared for long-term pressure. Not everyone benefits equally from the rewards. And when imbalance grows, cracks appear within the group itself. A single quiet decision made for personal safety can change everything. What makes intelligence so effective is that it does not announce itself. There is no moment when someone suddenly realizes they are surrounded by it. Instead, it operates invisibly until it no longer needs to. By the time its presence becomes known, its work is already complete. And this is why the belief that one can always stay ahead is so dangerous. You cannot outrun something that is not chasing you. You can only outpace something that moves openly. Intelligence moves in silence. From the outside, patience can look like inaction. People often confuse quiet with weakness. They assume that because nothing is happening, nothing is being done. But silence is often the loudest phase of preparation. This silence allows connections to deepen, understanding to widen, and certainty to replace speculation. It is not waiting in fear. It is waiting with purpose. Those who feel untouchable often measure risk in days and weeks. Intelligence measures in months and years. Those who chase profits think in immediacy. Intelligence thinks in outcomes. This difference in perspective is why the gap always widens. While one side is focused on the next move, the other is focused on the entire story, and the full story always carries more power than any single action. When intelligence finally moves into the open, it never feels sudden to those who built it. It only feels sudden to those who never saw it coming. From the outside, it appears like everything collapsed at once. But in truth, everything was understood long before it was ever revealed. The outcome was already written before anyone realized the story had been fully read. What follows this moment is often disbelief. The same people who once felt invisible are stunned by how clearly they were seen. The same routines that felt safe
suddenly look obvious. The same confidence that felt powerful now feels misplaced. Questions arise that arrive far too late. When did things change? Where did the mistake happen? Who noticed first? What was the trigger? The truth is, there was never one single trigger. There was only time. Intelligence does not rely on perfection. It relies on persistence. It does not require constant success. It only requires steady attention. Even failure feeds it. Even misdirection sharpens it. Even silence strengthens it. And this is why, in the long run, it always catches up. For every moment of invisibility, there is a record. For every hidden step, there is a shadow. For every confident operation, there is a file quietly growing somewhere unseen. People believe they are ahead because they are not being stopped. But being allowed to continue is not the same as being unseen. Often it simply means that the story is still being written. In the end, intelligence never arrives as a surprise to itself. It only arrives as a surprise to those who believed they had escaped it. And this is the second truth that defines every long-running operation. No matter how advanced the methods, no matter how careful the planning, no matter how secure things appear, intelligence always catches up, not because it moves faster than people, but because it never stops moving at all.
Never stops moving at all. And when intelligence finally meets reality, when the waiting ends and truth rises to the surface, the final lesson begins to reveal itself. The truth about double lives and how no one can carry them forever. At first, the balancing act feels manageable. One identity for the outside world, another hidden beneath it. The separation feels clean, controlled, safe. But over time, the distance between these two lives starts to close in ways no one expects. Living two lives requires constant performance. Every word must be measured. Every reaction must be calculated. Every story must match the one told before. At the beginning, this feels exciting, even empowering. Being able to shift between identities gives a sense of control. It feels like winning a secret game that no one else even knows is being played. But what once felt like power slowly becomes pressure. As time passes, the effort required to maintain this split grows heavier. The mind never truly rests. Even in quiet moments, there is the question of what should be said, what should be hidden, what version of the self should appear. The smallest social interaction becomes a test. The simplest conversation carries risk. Over time, the strain becomes constant. In public spaces, the outer identity must remain flawless, calm, respectable, stable. The performance cannot slip. People begin to trust the image placed in front of them. They see reliability. They see routine. They see consistency. And that trust becomes another weight, because now more depends on the illusion remaining intact. Meanwhile, the hidden knife continues to demand its own attention. Messages need responses. Plans require adjustment. Pressure never truly disappears. The person becomes divided between two roles that were never meant to exist in the same body. One demands secrecy. The other demands openness. One thrives on silence. The other depends on engagement. Holding both at once slowly reshapes behavior. The greatest danger of a double life is not discovery. It is exhaustion. The human mind was never designed to run parallel realities indefinitely. Small contradictions begin to appear. A detail remembered in one setting is forgotten in another. A habit slips into the wrong environment. A reaction feels out of place. At first, these errors seem harmless, easily corrected, easily explained. But the mind remembers every near miss, and memory builds anxiety. Relationships change under the weight of this pressure. Even with those closest, the connection becomes filtered. Emotional distance grows. Conversations become incomplete. Answers become partial. Over time, people sense when something is missing, even if they cannot name it. Trust weakens not because of proof, but because of instinct. Silence becomes noticeable. The longer the double life continues,
the narrower the margin for error becomes. What once required constant caution now demands perfection. And perfection is not a sustainable standard. Fatigue dulls attention. Stress shortens patience. Confidence replaces discipline. And discipline is the only thing that ever made the balancing act possible in the first place. There is also a psychological shift that happens quietly. When someone lives behind an image for too long, the image starts to feel more real than the person underneath it. The public identity becomes refined, rehearsed, accepted. The private identity becomes isolated, weighed down by secrecy. The line between which self is real starts to blur, and when identity blurs, judgment follows. Some begin to believe that the performance itself is protection, that if the public version is convincing enough, nothing else matters. Reputation becomes armor. Social standing becomes insulation. But reputation cannot carry secrets indefinitely. It can only delay their weight, and delay does not lessen collapse. It only extends the distance of the fall. The collapse of a double life never begins loudly. It begins quietly, with missed details, changing routines, unfamiliar questions, unexpected absences, and subtle shifts in the environment. Things that once felt predictable grow uncertain. People act differently. Timing changes. Reactions feel delayed. The world does not confirm anything, but it stops behaving the same way. Those living the double life often sense the shift before they understand it. There is a growing awareness that control is slipping, even if the reason is unclear. Sleep becomes restless. Focus becomes fractured. Every sound feels louder. Every pause feels longer. The mind searches constantly for the mistake that must have happened, even when none is visible yet. When the collapse finally comes, it does not arrive as chaos. It arrives as clarity. The two identities can no longer be separated. The stories intersect. The contradictions collide. And suddenly, the performance ends not because the actor chose to stop, but because the stage itself has changed. The audience sees the full picture for the first time. In that moment, the weight of the double life becomes fully real. Every protected detail becomes exposed. Every hidden routine becomes obvious. Every secret effort becomes visible. The image that once felt invulnerable now feels fragile, and the person underneath, who carried the pressure alone for so long, must finally face both sides at once. What follows is often disbelief mixed with reflection, not only at how everything ended, but at how long it was carried at all. Looking back, the signs seem clearer. The stress, the tension, the contradictions, the near misses that once felt like luck now reveal themselves as warnings. But warning only matters before the moment of consequence. After, it becomes memory. The truth about double lives is that they do not fail because someone else is perfect. They fail because human beings are not. We forget, we tire, we misjudge, we relax at the wrong moments, we trust when we should not, we overlook what later becomes obvious. And in a life built on secrecy, even a small human moment can have a permanent outcome. For those watching from a distance, these collapses often seem sudden. One day everything appears ordinary, the next day everything is different. But to the person living the double life, the ending rarely feels sudden. It feels heavy, long overdue, and strangely quiet. The struggle to maintain separation has ended, and with that ending comes both loss and release. The collapse of identity removes the illusion that control ever truly existed. It reveals the truth that every false balance depends on constant effort, and effort always has a limit. No matter how careful the design, no matter how strong the discipline, no structure built on concealment can stand forever. Time always leans on the weakest point. In the end, what remains is not simply the story of being caught. It is the story of carrying two realities until neither one could survive the pressure. It is the story of confidence turning into routine, routine turning into fatigue, and fatigue turning into exposure. It is the story of how even the most carefully maintained illusion eventually gives in to human limits. And this is the final truth that completes the quiet cycle. The illusion of being untouchable fades. Intelligence always catches up, and every double life, no matter how polished or protected it appears, eventually collapses under its own weight. If you're drawn to real stories hidden in the dark corners of reality, make sure you subscribe, because the next truth is already waiting.